Okay, this shows clearly why Democrats lose to Republicans, and it shows really clearly why progressive Democrats should be run against Republicans. I mean, the last thing that Papantonio has to say in this video is, well, I think that there's no clear choice for Republicans. Oh, the Republicans really hate the fact that politicians are owned. Politicians are owned, and that politicians are just in it for the money. You know, all the corruption and stuff. Well, clearly, if you want to, so watch the video, and you'll see that what they're saying is that there's no clear choice between the Republican and the Democrat. So obviously, if you give them a choice, if you give them a progressive Democrat who doesn't take money from the rich or from from the rich, basically working for the rich instead of for the people, then they would vote for him, even him or her, obviously, even though it's the other party. I mean, I think so. Well, he's saying actually the opposite, that tribalism, that people vote for Republicans just because, right? But that's not true, and we're proving it all over the place. I mean, we can win in some of the most conservative places of America because they really like somebody who isn't owned, even if that person, even if they don't agree entirely with that person. Although most Republicans now support Medicare for all, universal health care, single payer. Huh? So that's a indication right there that they do support a lot of, I mean, a lot of Republicans aren't rich, you know. I mean, they couldn't win elections if all they depended on was the 1 or 2% or the 10 or 20% who support the 1 or 2%, right? Okay, so anyway, here's the clip.
A damning indictment has just come out just a few months before Election Day, and Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter is on the ballot and in the hot seat. Join us to talk about this is RT correspondent Brigida Santos. Brigida, there are serious allegations in this indictment with a large amount of money stolen from the campaign, both by two defendants, Congressman Duncan Hunter and his wife. Break this down for us and tell us why this is such an important story, certainly where it comes to the balance of the House right now for the Democrats.
Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter, who represents portions of California's 50th district, which encompasses parts of San Diego County and also Riverside County, he's been charged with federal crimes, including wire fraud, falsifying records, and illegally using campaign funds for his own personal use. Now, his wife, Margaret, has also been charged. Both of them have pleaded not guilty, but the 60-count indictment outlines how the couple illegally used $250,000 in campaign donations to pay for their children's private school tuition, to fund lavish vacations, and buy other personal items, including clothing, video games for their kids, entertainment, you name it. It sounds like they have spent their money on it. And it also outlines how they fraudulently claimed that they were writing this off as charitable donations in some cases, or counting some of these items as political spending.
Okay, so you have this balance of power that's supposed to be taking place right now. We're going to see keep hearing about the blue wave that's getting ready to take place. I don't think you even need a blue wave if you keep getting indictments come down for Republicans. There may not have to have a blue wave. It's just going to happen on its own energy. But Hunter's legal team has questioned the timing of the indictment. He says the name can't be taken off the ballot in November midterm elections. Is he still going to run come midterms? I mean, what's your reaction to that part of the story?
As of now, it does look like he's going to run. Now, according to California election law, it's too late to remove Hunter's name from the ballot, and it's too late to add a replacement Republican candidate to the ballot. In fact, the only way Hunter's name can be removed right now is through a court order, and that's very unlikely to happen. Now, some critics say that this is going to give Hunter's opponent, Democrat Amar Khampa-Najjar, a boost in the election. However, that's unlikely, and that's because the constituents in this Republican-leaning district have already been polled by many local media outlets, and they say that they are still going to vote for Hunter regardless of the indictment. Now, they do say that they would prefer a new candidate, but they're not going to get one. And according to a Survey USA poll on Monday, Hunter was still leading by 8 points. So this is probably not going to hurt his chances for a re-election.
Well, he may be reelected and he's indicted and put in prison in the process. But you know what that really tells me? It tells me how dangerous this tribalism in politics has become. Republicans are just as bad as Democrats. Democrats like to say, oh, no, we're not tribal. There's nothing tribal about us. But I want you to think about something. This is kind of an aside, but it has to do with Brennan. Okay, Brennan, now you have the liberal Democrats so upset Brennan is being victimized by Trump. This is the same Brennan, you understand, who, when he was in office, set up all the black sites where people were waterboarded. He was actually called a war criminal by the same people who now say, oh, he's a great American hero. Why is that? It has to do with tribalism. It has to do with we don't have enough sense, we don't have enough discipline to say, yeah, I'm a Democrat, but I got to be honest about what I am as a Democrat. What do I agree with? What don't I agree with? Same way with Republicans. This really tells the story. Here you got a guy's indicted. He's indicted. His wife's indicted. Seems to be the evidence is pretty good in this indictment. And nevertheless, Republicans are saying, well, he's a Republican, so I'm going to vote him anyway. What is your take on that? I mean, this notion of tribalism, don't you see it every year becoming more and more of a threat to democracy? What is your take on that, Brigida?
Absolutely, but an indictment, again, these are charges. It doesn't mean he's going to actually be prosecuted, and oftentimes you see this, these leaders get indicted for this, and then they end up getting a slap on the wrist. They're allowed to continue on in politics. He might go to jail, but he also might be allowed to stay in office. And as you said about the tribalism, it's both parties that are just as corrupt. Back in 2011, a Democratic candidate had this same problem and was indicted, and in 2013, a Democrat was also indicted and pleaded guilty to the same charges here, misusing campaign finances for their own personal use. So this is happening on both sides of the aisle. Unfortunately, it has just become politics as usual, and that is why constituents will vote for him anyway, because they just don't trust the system.
Yeah, this sounds like a chapter out of Confederacy of Dunces. Everybody should read that book to understand how bizarre politics has become. Thank you for joining me, Brigida.
Okay, so you see what I'm saying?
Much smoother ride than the older car.
It's just, I mean, it's just ridiculous that we would allow the Democratic Party to run a candidate. Sorry, I'm just eating my breakfast here. I'm the only news host who will sit and eat his breakfast as he's doing his show. I don't know what to say. I mean, isn't that the way politics in America has been for the last, 50 years of my life, for sure. It's a bizarro world of politics. And the reason is simple. The rich, by owning our politicians, turn it on its head, right? So Republicans would even vote for Trump, right? Anything over Bush or Cruz or any other establishment Republicans. And they're stupid enough to believe that anybody who would become, any Republican who would become president would not be an establishment president. I mean, I actually think that some millionaire or billionaire or whatever he is from New York would not be establishment, would be working in the interest of the people. Okay, that's the tribalism he's talking about. You know, if it's got an R in front of its name, then vote for it. But progressives have proved quite often now, and I think it'll just steamroll, snowball, that Republicans will vote for them. I mean, just saying, I don't take any corporate money seems to be enough for a lot of Republicans. And it is for Democrats, but I would put a big caveat here, and here I'm saying big caveat. You don't have to pay politicians up front to get them to do your bidding. You can promise them, or it can just be well known that if you do their bidding in office, when you get out, you'll get a job with Goldman Sachs that pays you $1 million a year or something like that, right? So we have to watch out, which goes to my, I'm the one who started this on the internet. And if it started on the internet, basically, it probably started there overall. And I started this thing of forcing candidates to sign contracts. And a good contract would hold them liable into the future. Now, Elizabeth Warren's trying to pass this legislation right now, which they'll never pass, which says that after you're out of office, you can never be a lobbyist, which is great, But let me say something about Elizabeth Warren. Too little, too late. I get it that she felt cheated as a consumer and she became a consumer rights advocate. But as far as progressive values, she's been weak all of her time. She's had plenty of time in Congress to push bills like Bernie's pushing. Losers. They're losers, but they're badges of honor, right? So like Bernie's pushing for something right now, I forget what it is, but it's awesome. And he's going to lose, but at least he's got that badge on his lapel, right? And then in 20 years, well, he'll be dead, but if he wasn't 75 or 80 years old or whatever he is, he might be alive, who knows. Anyway, so, they'll be able to look back and say, well, he lost, but look at now, these are the things that are going to win in the future. And when they do, then all of a sudden Bernie will be a winner. Because they'll say, well, he fought for this 20 years ago, and now they're passing it. So there is something to the idea of progress, right? It's not always about winning. It's about supporting the right thing. So, just to sum this up, America's Lawyers little thing that they had, they missed the biggest point here, and that's that not just the Democrats aren't differentiating themselves in terms of corruption, ethically and morally, from the Republicans, and therefore people who vote tribally, as they put it, vote for the Republican because they don't see much of a choice. But they're not. Democrats aren't bothering to put somebody up who is a clear choice between corruption and good values and ethics and stuff.